It's Ash from Super Videos, back for another video for The Walking Dead. In this video, we'll be looking at a theory that Morgan and Rick will reunite in the next big arc in the show, which will be adapted from the comics, or at least a story in which either Morgan reunites with the group or reunites with someone he knows pre-apocalypse, or one where Rick reunites with the group again, or someone he knows pre-apocalypse. Before we start with the video, if you're new to the channel, subscribe to join our community and press the bell to be notified. If you enjoy the content, make sure to press the like button. It does make a difference. Not only do I see how many people are enjoying the content that's released, but also it helps with the YouTube algorithm and with being promoted. The more you like the video, the more chances that YouTube will promote the content, and as a result, the more people will see the channel. So with that said, let's dive right in. So this theory stems from the source material in the comics. Without going into too much detail, there is a storyline where Michonne reunites with someone from her immediate family, her daughter, at a place called Commonwealth. Commonwealth, for non-comic readers, is the name of a huge community that the survivors will come to learn about a bit in the season 10 finale, but more in depth in season 11. We got our first tease at the group that live at Commonwealth as a result of Eugene's communication with Stephanie on the radio. Stephanie is from Commonwealth and she'll be the key to the new, much bigger world in a way. Because in the comics, the Commonwealth have a few thousand people living there, so it's a pretty big community. And I'm sure they're gonna follow the same in the show. So in a way, Stephanie is the bridge to the next big chunk of the story coming up from the comics. But of course, they're gonna need to change that, because in the show, Michonne left after she found a lead about Rick's survival, so she can't take a part in this. One of the biggest theories out there, and one that I've gotten a lot of questions about, is will Rick and Morgan reunite at Commonwealth? And will that be the big remixed version of Michonne reuniting with her daughter from the comics? To be completely honest, it's a bit of a stretch, but it's a possibility. Like, if they want to shock fans out of their mind, they can do this. The problem though is that neither Rick nor Morgan is in the show at the moment. Morgan is in Fear the Walking Dead and Rick is in the movies. So if they want to make this happen, three major things will need to happen that will drastically change the future of the franchise, which I doubt they will do, or they will risk it all to do that. The first thing that will need to happen is Rick will need to somehow escape CRM, which is the group that took him away, and come back to the original show. And Morgan to leave Fear the Walking Dead and find his way to Commonwealth and reunite with the survivors. Or the flip side of that, Morgan to come back and Rick to go to Commonwealth and for them to reunite. And the next thing that will happen as a result of this, or will need to happen, is that neither one will be able to go back from where they came from. So if this happens, Fear the Walking Dead will lose Morgan forever, which I doubt will be of interest to the writers and AMC, since Morgan is pretty much the face of Fear at this point. And the other thing that needs to happen is Rick will never be able to return to the movies, which does complicate this story and the future of the movies, because I doubt that he'll come back and then leave again. And also, what would be the point of having Michonne go after Rick if Rick was going to come back one season after Michonne leaves? So I doubt that's going to happen. And because of the same reasons I just went through, it's highly unlikely that they will have Rick show up at Commonwealth and reunite with the survivors without Morgan's presence, or even Morgan showing up at Commonwealth and reuniting with everyone without Rick being in the equation. Now, if Rick was still in the story, or even if Carl was alive, they could have, if they wanted to, remixed the story from the comics, revolving around Rick's brother. In the comics, there was a separate, standalone, independent story centered around Rick's brother called The Alien. In that story, Rick never showed up, and there was no reunion or anything like that. But the cool thing about it was that it was a brand new setting. Rick's brother was actually in Barcelona, Spain, when everything went down. And it was a story about him trying to get back to the US to find Rick and his family. Now, if Rick was still around, they could have had his brother be at Commonwealth and for Rick to reunite with him. Or if Rick was gone and Carl was still around, they could have had Carl recognize his uncle, and they could have had that be the remixed Michonne reunion story. But of course, none of that can happen. And even if it did, that would mean that none of the alien story could happen anymore. And that, I think, would have been a missed opportunity, because it was cool to see a brand new environment in a foreign country in a way that still connects to the original story like the way it did. But if they just leave that story alone, then in the future, when they feel it's a good time, they can have a special spin-off or even a movie that explores that story. And it's separate enough for a movie to work extremely well. So with all of that said, since I don't think either Morgan or Rick will be involved in that Michonne reunion story from the comics, then who do I think will or can get that? To be honest, that moment, as big as it was not exclusive to a character, or it wasn't really written for a particular character. In theory, they can give it to just about anyone, as long as they are relevant enough and maybe big enough to the story for that to be a major moment in the story, in the grand scheme of things. They can have it be Ezekiel, Eugene, or anyone else they feel can get that moment, especially if the trip Yumiko, Ezekiel, and Eugene are on ends with them actually getting to Commonwealth. Then that would be a great way to make them immediately feel connected to the new community and try to make it work. Speaking of Yumiko, another interesting, more realistic way to remix it, well, not really realistic, but a more surprising and shocking moment would be to have Connie magically show up at Commonwealth and reunite with Yumiko and the others. Don't shred me to pieces in the comment section. That wasn't a genuine prediction. I said it's not realistic, and I did mention magically appear. So that pretty much tells you my true feelings about that. Now, it would have been a highly likely theory if Commonwealth was closer to where the survivors are, which is not the case. Now, on a more serious note, another remix they would have been able to do was to have Dwight and Sherry reunite at Commonwealth if they had Dwight stick around. But of course, they will reunite in Fear the Walking Dead, so they're just doing that there. But others who can possibly get that remixed story and for it to be impactful would be someone like Maggie, who is coming back. She could reunite with someone at Commonwealth, or even Carol or Daryl or one of the other A-list characters. But with all of that said, I want to know everyone's thoughts and opinions. Your theories, your fun ideas, all of it. Let me know in the comment section below. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.